In this video, I will demonstrate some aspects of autocoding in NVivo for Windows. So let's assume we want to do a quick content type of analysis to see what was discussed in our interviews. One way to do this very quickly is to use autocoding. So I'd go to my interview transcripts and highlight those that I wish to autocode. Now let's assume we just want to get an overview of what was discussed in the group in the interviews. So highlight all of them. As you can see in the top panel, autocode is now coloured, which means we can use it. So I'm going to click on autocode. We can do different kinds of autocoding. One of the most useful is to identify themes. Now, this is something we can do in Windows, but unfortunately, it's not yet available in the Mac version. But there are other ways we can autocode by speaker name, and perhaps by question or following coding patterns. And we'll come to sentiment analysis, which is very useful, but in a different video. But here in this video, I'm just going to identify themes. But before I do so, the speaker name autocode is very useful. Now, because I just want an overview of what was talked about in the interviews, and because I know that in these particular interviews, the interviewer didn't say very much, I know that the interviewer's talk isn't going to make a huge difference if I just want that kind of quick blast to get, what was discussed in these interviews? How did the interviews look? Now, if I was doing a different kind of analysis, or if the interviews are very conversational in style, then I would first autocode by speaker name. And the reason I'd do that is because I wouldn't want to be assigning in my analysis the words of the interviewer to and ascribing them to the interviewee, or assuming they come from the interviewee, which would be very easy to do. And if it was a more conversational style of interview, I would first autocode by speaker name. And in doing so, I'd be able to make a new file that would just have the text of the interviewee. Now, there's always debates to be had around whether to do this or not. And in some analyses, for instance, when we publish, we would want to be showing what is the interviewer saying, how does the interviewee respond, especially if it is more a social constructivist type of project where we're acknowledging that conversation in the interview is a product of not just the interviewer or the interviewee, but is a co-construction that happens during the interview, a co-construction of talk that happens during the interview. So you have to make that decision. If you want to separate, click on speaker name, follow the instructions, and it'll be very easy to do. In the same way, here I'm going to just identify themes. So I click on this and follow the instructions, the same instructions. It's interesting that NVivo autocoding calls them themes. So sometimes when we're doing a thematic analysis, we're thinking about a very emergent type of analysis, and the themes being the product of a process, a long, careful process to develop and identify research themes. These themes are really content. They're not just words, because if, for instance, here in fishing would also include other things such as the fishing for clams or different kinds of fish. And so there's an element of AI that goes on, but basically it's a content type of analysis. Hence why it can sometimes seem for qualitative researchers slightly odd to call them themes. But all I do is click. Now I have to think, well, how finely should I code the text? I almost invariably just stick with coding by sentences, which means there'd be a code for each sentence. So it's more fine grain. But I do that because then it's easy for me to identify a particular shorter sentence rather than a paragraph. And if I want to see that sentence in context, it's very easy to do so by clicking on the results and clicking on the hyperlink that is connected to the results that would take you back into the main document. So invariably, I will go with coding sentences, but again, that's a matter of taste, preference. Now, this bit I would say is important. It would be very easy just to leave that as auto-coded themes, the name. So this is the node where the auto-coded themes will be placed as new nodes and subnodes. And the problem is if I don't rename it and then I run another autocode and I don't rename that, we can have multiple analyses, autocode analyses, going into the same place again. So I want to make sure I say transcribed interview only. And I might put the date in as well. 17th October 23. Right, so let's see what we have here. So that set of interviews has now been auto-coded. We have a hierarchy diagram that's made automatically, and this tells us what the content of those documents were, of those and across those documents. So we can see here, there was a lot of talk about fishing, water, houses, but there's some talk about place. Shrimping is getting its own category. Yeah, so we might expect maybe shellfish is being talked about in a different way to other fish or fishing. And we can see what we have here. So if I hover over the name of the content code, which we're calling a theme here in NVivo, we can see here, yes, so there are different coding references. There's 8 direct references here. 2 here, fishing industry, 7 direct references. So it's useful to get an overview. If I click here, automatically the auto coding process has produced this matrix. Now, one thing can be useful to do when we're looking at the matrix is to click on transpose, because there are many themes, as you've already seen, that were identified in the hierarchy chart. So I can't see them all, but if I transpose, it's easier to see. This is a way that would take us directly to the data. So for instance, if I want to see what has been coded here to Barbara, here we've got Charles, so we've got the different interviews across the top now. if I was interested and say, well, let's see what has Charles said, I would click on this. If we're interested in what has Barbara said about fishing, I can click. And as I double click, what we will find is that those references are revealed to us. So it can be an easy way to navigate the data and to begin to make comparisons between interviewees, between the transcripts. Okay, so here we have the 4 references that were coded. And yes, they're definitely talking about fishing in all cases. Fishing, fish, seafood. You can see it's picked up appropriately. Okay, and if I want to see in context, he does fishing, commercial fishing, but actually he's not commercial, just for his own freezer. Okay, so what's that about? So I'm going to just click on the hyperlink and that will take me then to the text. Okay, and as you can see, here is that first reference and it's highlighted so I can see it in context, read around that, but I can also whiz down and the other coded text will be highlighted as well for me. So that can be very useful to do. I'm going to look at the nodes now, because the auto-coded themes, those auto-coded nodes really, are there within nodes. As you can see, my NVivo today is working a little bit slowly. So we're having just to wait for the work to be done. Right, so Halima, the auto-coding hasn't appeared where it should have appeared. So if you can stop the video while there's the silence, I will now just re-auto-code it again. If you can chop out that bit, and then it should look by magic as if it worked perfectly. I think my NVivo needs a rest. It's very slow. And also, I will remember to take out these middle words from the transcript that is being made automatically. They were there all along, Halima. So I'll take this bit out and then just starting from now. So to find the nodes, you can click on codes and you will see nodes there. If you need to, just click on the little triangle and we go to our auto coding. Here we have auto coding themes of transcribed interviews. And the ones I just did now here. You can see the importance of having named the folder, otherwise everything would be duplicated and we might be auto-coding some different documents. So here we have it. Here's our coding. These are our content themes. So each one of these corresponds to a rectangle here on the hierarchy chart. I can click on the plus for the sub nodes. So coding the data can be this simple. Would I entirely rely on it? No. It's very good for a content analysis. And as I said earlier, it's really important you decide what you're going to do about the interviewer's talk within the interview transcripts, how you're going to deal with that. But I probably would use it for sure, but in conjunction with some manual coding as well. It really depends what your research questions are. Sometimes it may be appropriate that you're doing a content type of analysis and you may more readily want to use the auto coding for that purpose. But particularly useful, whether you rely on it or it's just part of the picture, we have a very powerful tool here to handle potentially large data sets. And you may wish to analyze different aspects of the data set in different ways. So for instance, if you're comparing older and younger participants' views, you could also use auto coding in that way by pre-selecting the documents of choice first. And especially it's useful within literature review, of which we have a page available in the Stepping Up NVivo course on Stepping Up NVivo Literature Review.